Alright, next bike on the chopping block is going to be this 96 Dyna EVO. We've got some head gaskets and some base gaskets to replace. We're getting some leaking going by them. And so brought me a whole new kit. The back cylinder actually has RTV inside of it. So we're going to tear it all apart, get the tank off, take the whole top end apart, pull off the exhaust, and we're going to get this bike back up and running on the road like it should be. Alright, so getting busy. Tank has now come off. Took off the carburetor as well. Exhaust as well, obviously. So what we're going to be doing on this bike is we're going to be replacing base gaskets as well as the head gaskets as well. The previous person that worked on it looks like they used some RTV up in the rear cylinder and possibly didn't torque down the head bolts to the correct specs, and it's leaving us with some leaks and stuff that are going on down here at the base of the engine. So next I'm going to start removing horn mount, all this stuff. I'm going to take the intake manifold off, and then we're going to start stripping down heads and rocker boxes, heads, and then take them jugs off and kind of see what we're working with inside of there. So got to keep moving. Let's keep rolling here. Alright, well, if you've never tried to take off 25-year-old intake manifold bolts, they are no joke. One, you don't have a whole lot of room to work with, as you can see. Most of the time, you need to get one of these and then cut it down, so you got a short stubby thing that could go in there. But enough room, but just a tip, leverage. Leverage is your best friend when you're working with old stuff. Slide it in there like that, now you got a nice long handle. Knuckle busters all day long when you try and do that stuff. So good like rip at it and boom, they come right out. Always leverage. Alright, so the rocker box completely off and completely disassembled, and just a little tip for you, try and keep everything just kind of in line. You see I have the top of the rocker box here, I have the rocker here, and all the bolts still just sitting where they need to go, so that when I go reassemble, I know where they're going. And then also label this rear. This is the rear cylinder head, so before I go and take anything else off, I will go ahead and label this rear, and then of course your push rods and your intake and your exhaust one. Alright, you got to make sure that you keep track of these things here. They are labeled for you, or they are color coded here, but one is longer than the other, so just a little tip for you. Alright, keep your stuff labeled, keep your stuff kind of organized. It'll make reassembly so much easier. But next thing we're going to do is go ahead and remove this head, and really all that it is 4 bolts. These 2 that are inside of here, and then there's 2 over here on the other side that we'll be removing here as well. Alright, so we're going to get this head off of here. I might actually start taking this rocker box off before I start taking the head off. We'll see. Alright, well, I had some help come and join me. And she's been a pretty big help, actually, because now we've got all the rocker boxes removed, push rods removed, all the push rod covers and everything removed as well. And now we're going to start disassembling the heads. All this to remove the heads is these 4 bolts on each side. They're torqued down pretty good. They are 12 pointers. So we're going to go ahead and remove those here so we can start exposing the jugs themselves. And keep on rolling, but it's coming along pretty quick. It's not too bad. Sometimes with these older bikes, you run into some issues because it's 25 years old. Things happen. Things are crusty or rusty. And all right, well, that's a wrap on today. This is all torn apart all the way down to the jugs. Clearly see that the head gasket and this one, honestly, I think lack thereof. I did not even see a head gasket here when I lifted this head up. There's nothing even here, so I really don't know what was going on with this rebuild of this bike here at some point. So it's all torn apart down to the stuff that I need to get to. Clean some of this stuff off. A tip that I want to make sure that you guys kind of keep in mind, or something to. I have my system. My system has worked for me for many years, but I'll leave this stuff on the bench. It's not going anywhere. And the way that I took it off is rear, front. You want to make sure that these cylinder heads go back in the same spot. You don't want to, put them back in different places. You don't want stuff crossing over. So I know that the way I took this off is when I look over here at the bike, here's how it is. I got the front on this side, and I got the left on this side. And I've got the jug, the head, the rocker box, the valve, the push rod covers, and the push rods themselves. And underneath here I have all of the bolts sitting where they need to go, so that I know when we go rebuild, it's just follow the process. Put the new gaskets in, and the bolts are all in the same place that they need to go, and torque them down to spec. So just a little trick for you, helpful hint for you. It'll definitely make the process, you know, part of it going back together smoothly is tear down and assembly. You gotta have a process here a bit. So we're all the way down. This thing had some look at, I don't know who did this before, but basically that's a gasket maker. So the rear cylinder head had gasket maker holding it. Didn't even have it had a blown gasket on it, and then whatever was there was gasket maker. Just boggles my mind sometimes the work that people put out. So now ring compressor, we're going to start putting the jugs back on. We're going to start putting the gaskets back together, and that's going to reassembly is going to go back here pretty quick. Actually, it shouldn't go back. It should go back together fairly easy. There weren't major problems tearing it down. Stuff came apart relatively easy. There was nothing that was out of the ordinary for it. So for a 25-year-old bike, it came apart like I expected it to. So now we start to rebuild, and got a whole new kit here. So gasket kit, top end. This is from Harley. So it's one full kit with everything. Head gaskets, base gaskets. It's got O-rings for the lifters. It's got the breathers. It's got every gasket in here imaginable for this top end. Now, this is important. This is why it is important when you go take all this stuff apart and you kind of leave it in a position to be able to put it back together. There's a lot of gaskets here, as you can see. 2 different rocker boxes. There's a lot of moving parts here. And so by leaving your stuff that you took apart together and assembled as it came off of the bike, you're just going to start replacing the gaskets. You're going to start putting new gaskets in as you start laying these down. So just staying organized is very crucial to the success of how you're going to go and build this. This looks like for the intake manifold, breathers. There's a lot of different parts in here. O-ring gaskets for the push rods. Looks like we have base gaskets here, head gaskets over here. So do not use with O-rings. So this is just the gasket. Wow, it even came with exhaust gaskets as well. Cool. All right. So came with everything here. So the only thing we're missing here is new studs for the head bolts. Harley's recommendation, especially if they're this old. These are supposed to and should be replaced anytime you take them off. They're not really a reusable part. You can reuse them, but I don't suggest that you do. So, all right, next thing this is it for the night. I'll start showing you the reassembly here as it starts to go back together. Gasket is all cleaned up now. The mating surface is all cleaned up. So just put some things here so nothing accidentally falls inside of there, but start rebuilding the thing. Here we go.